3, go ahead.
Pressure 3, airborne and flag.
Zero quarters, all hands, man your battle.
201's airborne. I gotta get this guy up, but I gotta get him high powered, I gotta get him back down. That's why I gotta have all these tractors somewhere standing by so I can make it happen.
The U.S. aircraft carrier is the largest, most complex, and powerful warship ever to put to sea. With up to 90,000 tons of striking force, just one carrier has the firepower of an entire fleet of ships in World War II. It is also an incredible sight to see one in operation. But with war at hand, everything steps up a notch. The stakes are high, and the margin for error drops to zero. The U.S. Navy positions carriers in the Red Sea: the USS America, the Saratoga, Kennedy, and the Roosevelt. In the Persian Gulf, the Ranger and the Midway are in the fray as well. From day one, the flight decks bustle. Flight operations have always been a complex ballet of precision, timing, and skill. But there is a new urgency this time. All seem to realize that this is no peacetime exercise. The missiles and bombs are real. The targets are defended and will fight back. And some of these aircraft may not, and in fact do not, come back. It's a sobering thought. But the peacetime training takes over, and the launches continue virtually without let-up. First on the catapult, the E-2C Hawkeye. This is the eyes and ears of the fleet. Its radar will scan the skies looking for either shipborne or aerial bogies. The Iraqis have the capability to put up aircraft with Exocet anti-ship missiles, which could devastate the carrier battle group. Next come the Tomcats. Grumman F-14s are the air superiority birds. They will fly under the guidance of the Hawkeyes, ready to intercept any intruders. They will also fly to the target with the strike group to intercept any Iraqi attempt to disrupt the strike. Next up, the A-6 Intruders. Although it is a 1960s airframe, the Intruder has been upgraded through the years. In this case, it's the A-6Es, which can carry up to 18,000 pounds of ordnance. The A-6s will join up with the FA18s and A-7s to perform the actual attack mission. Going alongside is the A-6B Prowler. It will scan for Iraqi radars, in some cases jamming them, and in other cases sending a harm missile to ride the radar beam down to the site to destroy it. It is a dangerous and important job. When the Navy reaches the land, the pilots call it feet dry. And at this point, the adrenaline starts to flow. The heart rate goes up, and everything begins to happen very quickly. Typically, The pilot and bombardier navigator fly against a fixed target at a low altitude, steering and avoiding terrain using the internal navigation system. At night, they use the three-dimensional picture from the Norden radar. Our cameras have been in A-6Es at speeds well below those used in combat. But even then, it is quite a feeling. And it all culminates with the strike on the target. During the early stages of the war, the Navy flies an average of 150 missions every 24 hours from each carrier. That adds up to more than a third of the Desert Storm sorties coming from Navy flight decks.
It's really a delight to watch this team at work, the ship getting things ready, working the flight deck, getting the bombs up, and the air crews, the maintenance crews getting the airplanes up, the pilots and air crews flying the missions. It's really come together and done very, very well. I'm delighted with the performance of the guys so far.
That also means operations around the clock. And at night, the carrier deck takes on a whole new set of difficulties and dangers.
Everyone has to be more cautious at night. The deck moves a little bit slower. Obviously, for the obvious reasons, you can't see as well. And everything's in very tight quarters out there.
The deck is bathed in an eerie red glow. Red light being the only kind of light allowed on the flight deck after dark. For the pilots, it is a time like no other. While it is a necessary part of naval aviation, few aviators say they enjoy this part of the job. In fact, studies have shown that night carrier operations, especially the landings, cause more stress in pilots than even time spent over the target in combat. Despite that fact, working at night does have its advantages.
Well, one, they can't see you optically. Two, you can see the AAA being fired at you and missiles being fired at you. You can visually see it. So the pluses and minuses kind of balance out.
Many of the Navy strikes go at targets in Kuwait, such as port facilities, airfields, and in this case, an Iraqi patrol boat. And the results are pretty clear. The Navy has other kinds of duties as well, and one of the most important is supporting the Marine Corps, which is, after all, a part of the Navy Department. Oftentimes, these ships are taken for aircraft carriers, and in fact, they look the part. But this is an amphibious assault ship, the USS Okinawa, home to nearly 2,000 Marines and their helicopters. The helicopters, like this Sea Stallion, provide the airborne assault capability. In the early stages of the war, several islands off the coast of Kuwait were taken, and Marines like these men were involved. Those efforts came off without a hitch, and while mainly symbolic in nature, it was the first step involving Kuwaiti soil.
Well, first thing that they made sure was that the island was secure and was safe. We looked for personnel to see if there would be any Iraqi prisoners that we may be able to bring out. There were none. The island was deserted. We went to the next phase of the mission, which is to gather up all of the equipment that we could for being able to exploit for intelligence, as well as deny future use.
Meanwhile, another strike group is returning. When the planes get back over the water, they call that feet wet, of course. The first in are FA18s. The Hornet is an aircraft which has managed to fulfill its dual role by shooting down an Iraqi aircraft and carrying out a bombing strike on the same mission. But the Iraqis take a toll as well. Several Hornets are shot down during the first weeks of the war, and one of the first confirmed Americans killed in action is a Hornet pilot. Finally, it's over the ramp to get an OK pass, which means a satisfactory landing. All carrier pilots know that landings can be seen by everybody on the ship, and grades are handed out as well. Just an added incentive to end the mission with a solid show of airmanship. It turns out to be a seemingly endless process that places tremendous stress on everyone. The fatigue is obvious when little mistakes start to show up. Of course, a carrier deck is not the place to get careless. but somehow the strike group is safely recovered. And just like that, another is on its way. The constant operations obviously have an effect on the Iraqis too. At the start of the war, almost 100 air defense radars were active in Iraq and Kuwait. By the end of the second week, Navy strikes have reduced that number to just 15. But these are not the only airplanes in the crowded sky over the Gulf. We turn now to the eyes, words, and deeds of pilots who have the same goals, but speak a different language. Deep in a hardened bunker, Saudi pilots prepare to sortie with British-built Tornadoes. This is, after all, a multinational effort, and the Saudis are there from the first night of the battle. These pilots of the 7th Squadron are the unsung heroes of the Saudi Air Force. Instead of the Tornado, this is the aircraft getting much of the notoriety. The Saudis also fly the F-15 Eagle, and in fact, the first double kill of the war was a Saudi pilot in an F-15. But fighter pilots like this one can fly for days and not venture into enemy territory. The strike pilots flying Tornadoes do it every time they go out. A typical load for the Tornadoes is 4 1,000-pound bombs, or runway destruction munitions. Tonight, they go looking for mobile Scud missile launchers. It's a tough mission, with lots of bad weather and a tricky nighttime in-flight refueling to perform as well. But the Saudi pilots often have more experience than their Allied counterparts. Unlike the U.S. Air Force, they do not have to take a staff job until they reach the rank of colonel. That means many more flight hours before they have to sit behind a desk. There is no hesitation at the end of the runway. Just turn onto the active and light the afterburners. Another in the thousands of sorties is underway. Soon they approach the target, but by listening to the calm precision of their voices, you'd never know that the airfield they are attacking is ringed with AAA anti-aircraft guns and surface-to-air missiles. It's in and out fast, leaving the bombs behind.
Okay, 30 seconds. Other side. Okay, start committing. Okay, 15 seconds. This is live. Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. 5 seconds to go.
With as much flying as these air crews are doing, the Saudis, like the British and the U.S. Navy, have developed a way to provide crew rest on a rotating basis. These returning pilots will get some time away from flying before heading out again. But before resting, they offer this assessment of the mission.
And the mission was successful, alhamdulillah. We attacked our targets and we could see the fire all around.
Kuwait has an air force as well. These are the A-4KUs that were flown out of Kuwait when Iraq invaded. Now adorned with signs that say, "Free Kuwait," these pilots are involved from the very first night. Interestingly, they say it doesn't bother them in the slightest to be bombing their homeland. They point out that to do so is better than to just wait and not contribute. And then there are the French. Al-Hassa Air Base is the home of Jaguar fighter bombers of the 11th Fighter Wing, the Mirage 2000s of the 5th Fighter Wing, and others. The French have more than 10,000 personnel involved in Desert Storm and participate in strikes from day one. The Jaguars are tasked with attacking air bases. They will go in at altitudes lower than 100 feet. The French also make use of so-called smart weapons with laser designators to find and hold the target. And like the others in the coalition, they fly hundreds of sorties, one right after another.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and hit that notification icon for the latest videos as they are released. Thanks for watching, and catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.
Too low, terrain, too low, gear, too low, flags, terrain, terrain. Pull up, sink rate, pull up.
Decision height. Approaching decision height. Approaching minimums.